inspiration. Here I am on the last day in Punta Cana. I'll be flying back to St. Louis tonight. And I just wanted to spend a little time with you guys. Thanks for joining me. Smash that like button and subscribe. Check out my books on Amazon. Coming Back Home, The True Adventure of Mark Daniels. And I have had some adventures in life because I've traveled out of the U.S. There's a lot of places to go in the U.S., of course, but if you travel out, you'll find that there's a whole different big world out there. It really limits your perception of how the world is when you stay in your own town, your own county, your own state, your own country. There are so many different people out there with different ideas, attitudes, and outlooks on life. And by meeting these people and spending time with them and experiencing their culture, it makes you, it broadens your horizon, or widens your horizons, I guess I would say, for lack of a better way to say it. So if you can travel, travel. And if you can't travel, then prepare yourself, or make it, or find a way that you can travel. The money will return, the time won't. I've been out of the country over maybe 35 times now, probably almost 35. So I'm getting close, I'm losing count. But it's always a different experience, it's always an adventure. Rarely do things go the way that I planned, but that's how you have to learn to go with the flow of life. Kind of some noise back there, I'm not sure what that is. I'll wait. Life has a flow, and if you can get into that flow, you can experience peak living experiences. If you think about athletes, sometimes they'll talk about being in the flow of life, where everything just seems to happen. They don't have to think about it, they're just in flow. I've experienced them myself as a professional boxer. I have one picture in my mind when I was sparring with this guy, and this is one of the best. This guy was ranked number 1 in the nation as an amateur. Steve Earhart was his name, and he had turned pro. I think he was like, when he retired, he was like 9 or 10-0 as a pro, but he had a lot of problems with, he cut easily. He got, and even had the operation so he wouldn't cut as easy, but that really hindered him from becoming a champion. But he really was a champion, he just never actually got the belt. But anyway, that guy was so fast. And I remember one day working out with him, and it's like I slipped all his punches and come around and countered, and it was like, it was like flow. It just happened. I thought, I can't believe I did that with this guy. But I did, because I was in flow. And so it's the same way in life. You have to go with the flow to be in the flow, to experience peak living. So when things don't go your way, don't worry so much about trying to change them to get them to satisfy you, but just see how you can flow with the changes as they occur. Because you never know what's going to happen. As I said, things don't always work out. As I got here Friday I got here, and the girl that I'm with was supposed to be here at the same time I was. Her flight got delayed. She didn't get here till 9:30 or 10. I couldn't get in the hotel because I made the reservation in both our names, but for some reason my name wasn't on it, but hers was. Even though they saw I paid with the credit card, yeah, it was an issue. So it took me an hour or so to get into the room. Finally, we got it worked out. I could have got angry and yelled, and I've got angry at people in the past that lost my reservation, because that happens sometimes, especially when you book it through a third party. But actually, I booked this one directly, so I don't know how that happened, but it happens. As well as my flight, when I first got to the airport, they had my name wrong. Don't know how that happened either. I put my full name in there. But all these things happen. And I'm telling you, when I book a reservation, I look that thing over 2 or 3 times to make sure it's right. And then sometimes I have my son come in and look at it, because we can't see our own mistakes. And that brings me to the point of a mentor. We were talking last night, excuse me, we were talking last night on the Dragon Ship about how we can help young men who seem to be, the topic was incels. which is an involuntarily celibate person. It's almost, there's a group of them now. So we were trying to figure out how we could help these men to relate to women, but they don't know how. I think because we have so many single mothers now and so many homes without a masculine role model. So we have men, young men growing up, they're men, they're masculine, but yet they're imbalanced because they're only getting input from the feminine, okay? Because their mother's raising them, and even if there is a man in the home, a masculine presence, they're raised by their mother, and then they go to school, and they're raised by teachers, and they have to learn how to submit to women, because if they don't, they get in trouble, and they're told they're bad. So from the time they're born till the time they're 18, or if they go to college, let's say 22, they're constantly being programmed to submit to a woman's agenda. So what happens? If the adage is true, we become part of what we are around. We have these young men growing up around women until they're in their early 20s. And many of them are incels. Many of them are virgins because they have no idea how to relate to a woman from a masculine point of view, and that's what women are attracted to. And they're actually told in many places around the nation and the world that their masculinity is bad or that it's toxic. And it's quite the opposite. It's not toxic, it's not bad. Masculinity built the world as it is today. And yes, it's destroyed some too and had some wars. But if it wasn't for toxic masculinity, as they call it, I don't believe there is such a thing, but we would be speaking German in the US. And of course, a lot of you are too young to remember World War II. I wasn't born yet, but I was raised around men that had fought in that war. My father was one, my grandfather was another, and those men fought and died. So you could have the freedoms you have today. You could have the things that you complain about today if you're a young man. You live in paradise and you don't even know it. Now you look at where I'm at here and it's like paradise, but this is not how the whole of the Dominican Republic lives. These people live very poorly. Yes, this is elegant, but this is for people from first world countries who can afford it. And you live in a first world country. You have opportunities that people die for every day to get there. So you got no damn right to be complaining about anything. Now, have I complained? Yes, I have. So spot it, you got it. But I catch myself when I'm doing it. You have a car, you have a flat tire, first world problem, luxury. Most people don't have cars. The hot water's out. Oh, what am I gonna do? Most people in the world don't have running water. They don't have clean, drinkable water. Where I'm at here, you can't drink the water out of the faucet. You have to drink bottled water. Now, what do you think about people out there in the country? They're drinking the water out of the faucet, the tube. They can't afford bottled water, so they get dysentery, they get, what is it called? When you drink, there's, it's not amoebas, but it's something like that, because when I lived in Guatemala, my kids got that several times because they would drink the water out of the, when they were out playing, out of wherever they was drinking it. The water's not clean. Not like in the U.S. where I believe in every state in the U.S. you can drink water straight out of the faucet without any problems. And then now most kids growing up now won't even do that because they have to have water in a bottle. I drink water out of the hose. I mean, so we become so pampered, we don't know what it is to live, how do I say, and gain durability. I'll use a word from Thor, durability. We must have some durability, but we can't get that if we're comfortable, pampered, and treated as if we're a snowflake. And that's what we have. Men being raised by women have no idea what masculinity even means. It's just the way it is in the U.S. As opposed to years ago when I grew up, and even before me, I was raised, of course, the same by my mother, but I had a masculine presence in the home. And then he would take me out. I was around his men friends. And when I got in my teens, I hung around with a lot of young men. We stood on the corner, drank beer, we partied, we talked about manly things. We didn't have the internet to sit in front of all day long. We went outside, we walked up in the woods. We used to walk up an old railroad track. We'd go up there and build a fire and have a party. It may not be anything except me and a couple of my buddies. One of them's name was Poke and Kenny. We'd smoke grapevines. I don't know if any of you have ever done that. We couldn't smoke cigarettes. I started smoking cigarettes when I was 13. Started drinking when I was 10. But I never was a heavy drinker, but I drank and partied a lot. A big night for me was 12 beers, or a fifth, which is a liter now, but I might have did that once or twice. Never was a big drug user, although I did party a lot and did a lot of drugs. I didn't do the amounts and the consistency as a lot of people did. So when I decided to quit, it was easy for me to quit because I didn't have to have it. Unlike some people who continue on and they physically have to have it. So if you're partying and using drugs, I mean, that's fine, but like everything in moderation, just be careful with it because it can get a hold of you and you can become dependent on that. And as a man, you don't want to become dependent on anything or anyone. Although, with that being said, we are all interdependent. We do depend on each other. What I'm talking about is a form of dependency that is like codependency. Your whole life revolves around this person and you seem to can't exist unless you have some kind of a connection with this person. As I said, the strongest negotiating point that there is to be willing to walk away. Walk away from your woman, walk away from your family. Yes, your family. Because a lot of times, if you're with a woman and she knows you're really into your kids, she will use that against you to try to manipulate you. But if she knows you will leave, she has nothing to use to manipulate you with. But that happens more in the U.S. In other countries where women directly need a man, as where I'm at here now, that doesn't happen as much. But as you travel, you get to see the different people and how they interact with their women, with their children, all around the world. You don't get that in the States. I mean, there's neighborhoods in the States where you've seen one, maybe you live in one, where everything is perfect. The yards are perfect. There's no oil drops on the driveway. Everyone has air conditioning. Well, I grew up and we didn't have air conditioning. So what we have now is back to the young men. We have young men who are acclimatized with AC and heating. They don't know what it is to go out and sweat, to be out in the heat. They can't hardly handle it because they've grown up in controlled climate. So they can't work outside. And these young men are the ones we need. In the U.S. today, we have a lack of skilled workers, men that can work with their hands. Women don't want to go out and climb telephone poles. Women don't want to go down in the sewers and have roaches crawling all over them. Women don't want to build the high skyscrapers. Now, someone may say, and I've had women say, well, I know women that work in construction. Yeah, I know some too. They're standing out on the highway holding the stop and slow sign, okay? And there might be a few working on some big construction building sites, but 99.9% of them are men because women cannot do that kind of work. And that's going to piss off some women, but I don't care. If they could do that, there's a hell of a lot of money in that. And if you're a woman complaining about not making enough money, hey, go for it. If you can do the same job as a man, I think you should get paid exactly the same. If you can do it better, then you should get paid more. I'm all for equal rights, but I'm not for equal pay for unequal labor. If you can't do the job, I'll give you an example. In my town, I might have talked about this yesterday, they have signs up $25 an hour for unskilled labor. They can't get anybody to work. I know men that would pay $30 an hour for concrete work. I don't want to do that shit. That's hard work, okay? What I do is hard work, but it's not that kind of hard work. I just don't like shoveling. I did a lot of that when I was younger. Now, can a woman go out and do that type of work every day? There may be rare cases of a woman who can do that. Now, you'll find women in countries like this that may be able to do it. There's more of a chance of a woman being able to do it here because they're raised up a little harder. Hey, what's up, John? How you doing? Or no, I'm sorry. Yeah, John. Glad you could join me today. I'm talking about the difference between men and women and actually the difference between women in the U.S. and women out here in different third world countries. I'll give you an example. When I was in Guatemala, these women would get up. They didn't have a washing machine. They had what they call a pila. It's like an old washboard we had back in the States. I'd see them get up every morning. They had like 5 or 6 kids. They would wash clothes from like 6 or 7 in the morning till 11 or 12 at noon during the day. 4 or 5 hours. And then they would hang them out to dry. They would be out there every day doing that. When they would get done with that, I'm sure they would go in and cook for the family. Now that's hard work. Now some of these women were, I would call them stocky. Not fat, but those women could work. Now a woman like that might be able to come up to the U.S. and do concrete work, but she probably wouldn't want to. See, she knows what her work is and what she can do. And then in the other case, the man in these cases, he would be taking his mule up the volcano to go till the fields up there. Because on the basis of the volcano, the ground is very rich, and they would grow, in this case, they would grow coffee there. And the men would go up the hill in the morning with their mules and go up there and work in the fields all day. Now that's some rough-ass living, but that's the way we used to live here in the United States over 100 years ago. But now we're so, we got it so easy, and we don't even know it. And I wouldn't know it either had I not traveled out of the country. And that's what this video is about, is to encourage you to go to another country. Now, if you read the U.S. Embassy advisories about other countries, almost all of them are third world countries. Almost all of them are level 4 travel advisory. Reports of people getting kidnapped and robbed. And go to Chicago in certain areas. You'll get kidnapped or killed and robbed there. Go to St. Louis. Go to LA. It's no different. So don't listen to that. But when you go there, don't walk around like some idiot tourist, looking like you don't know where you are. Always be aware. Look around at people in your area. Be aware of where everyone is at, what they're doing. And if you see someone that you think is watching you, just look directly at them and let them know that you know that they're looking at you. This will deter people from robbing you. I've experienced that in Latin American countries because they will rob you because you're a tourist. And to them, you are rich. And you are. Compared to them, it's all relative to what you're used to. And many times in other countries, tourists will just give up everything. Now, the only time that I submitted to a robbery was I was walking down the street with a friend. It was a brother-in-law when I was married. And a car passed us and pulled over quickly. 4 guys jumped out with guns, and the one had the gun right on my chest. And I mean, he was shaking. So I wasn't afraid because it happened so quick, I really didn't have time to. So he told me to empty my pockets in Spanish. I didn't give him everything. I gave him with the money I had, which was, it might have been $20. I didn't give him my passport. I didn't give him the keys to my house. I didn't give him anything. So anyway, he got the money, and he had that gun on me, and then a couple of the other guys had guns aimed at me over the top of the car. So they had me. It happened too quick. I give them what I had. Didn't want to lose that passport or the keys to my house because they may come there. So they didn't get much. Now another time I had a guy, I had a guy, I was running down the street. I was jogging, I got up in the morning to run, and I come around the corner and 2 men came around the corner. And one of them run up to me and put his forearm up underneath my chin. So I rolled down underneath of it, and then I threw a hard right to his chest, to the side of underneath his chest and the ribs. And that knocked him down, but as he was going down, I threw another right, and I was going to nail him right here. And I still have the picture in my mind of my fist, I can see it, going down, and he was going down, it was following his chin. I never hit him with the second punch, but he went down from the first one, and then his friend backed off and said, "Tranquilo, tranquilo," which means, relax, relax. I'm thinking, oh yeah, relax so you guys can rob me. So you guys can rob me? So I stopped, I looked at the other guy, he backed up, and then I watched the guy on the ground, he was hurt. So I just backed away, walked away from him, and I started running again, and that was the end of that. But yeah, they'll rob you down there because most tourists will just, okay, here, take everything. And I understand that because most people can't defend themselves as I can. So it's very important for you to be able to defend yourself when you're out in these places. Now, where this happened was off of the beaten path, and that's where it really gets dangerous. If you stay in the high tourist areas, they're pretty well protected from lower end criminals because most of those areas are owned by the cartels. So they want tourists to come. They don't want tourists to be afraid because they make a lot of money off of that. But when you get out into the rural areas, which is where I was living at the time, it's much more dangerous because there are no gringos out there. There are no police. But the police in third world countries really aren't going to help you out too much anyway. One of the jokes they have down there is this: never pull over after dark for a policeman, because more than likely he's going to extort you for money. That happened to me once also too. I was in a town away from the town I was used to being in, and I was driving through the red light district, and there's girls, I was on my motorcycle, there's girls standing all over the place there, pretty good looking girls, and I stopped at the stop sign, and one of them runs out, jumps on the back of my motorcycle, and so she was cute. So I start going around the corner, and I'm like, she looked kind of young. I said, well, how old are you? And she says, oh, I'm 16. And then she reaches around and grabs me in my crotch and says, she asked me if it was big. I didn't speak Spanish very well then. I think they said duro, which is it hard or something. But after she told me I was 16, although the legal age down there is, at that time wasn't illegal. But I didn't want to do that because I'm from America and we have different laws there, and I prefer to follow them. So I thought, I got to get her off there. So I drove around the block, and back to where she jumped on, and I said, you need to get off. Well, as soon as I stopped, here comes the police. They come in behind me. I'm like, oh, shit. I know I hadn't done anything, but they asked me for my papers. So I gave them my papers, which I knew were correct. And they said, oh, this isn't correct. You have to have your passport notarized, which is bullshit. They can't even legally ask me for my passport, only for my driver's license. So anyway, but they're the police, what are you gonna do? They got the guns, right? So they told me I was going to have to go to the police station. I'm like, okay. So they told me to follow them. So this is all in Spanish. So I follow them, and guess where the police station was? At a vacant lot in the middle of nowhere. And no, there was no building there. This is the place they took me to extort me. So I knew what they wanted. I know the game there. So I gave them, I don't know what I gave them, 50 quetzales maybe? Anyway, but I gave them the money, paid them off, and they were happy. After that, we're all friends. It's just a game there. You have to play the game. So they had taken me a long ways, so I didn't know how to get out of this town because I was not familiar with the town. It wasn't the one I lived in. So now that we're buddies, I said, hey, can you show me how to get out of town? They were glad to. They led me, gave me a police escort out of town. So then I went back home. Yeah, so that's the way it is when you're in a foreign country. This can happen. But remember, corruption is on a very low level in these foreign countries. And many times, most of the time, at least where I was, they don't want to give you a ticket. They just want you to pay them. Because if they give you a ticket, then you got to go to the capital city and pay for it, which they don't get anything out of that. So the reason is they don't get paid enough, and it's very dangerous to be a policeman in these foreign countries. Most of the policemen are, as I said, they're corrupt, and they don't have enough. I was actually friends with the director of the police in one of these countries I lived in, and they had 20,000 policemen, and he informed me that they needed 40,000. So there just wasn't enough police to do what needed to be done. That's why they had less than a 1% charge rate on murders. Not conviction, charge. Less than 1% of the people they caught were ever charged with the crime, if they could even catch them. So, very dangerous countries to live in. People are still lynched in Latin America. What is lynching? Here's what it is. If you steal something, they will chase you. So let's say 2 people start chasing you, then 3, then a crowd, and if they catch you, they will beat the crap out of you. And if you survive that, they pour gas on you and burn you. This is a common occurrence in those countries. It's like living in the Wild West, so you must be very aware. Now, I'm not telling you that to make you afraid to go, but it's the same here. You can be assaulted or killed in many of the cities around the United States if you go to the wrong areas at the wrong time. So use your head. God gave you a brain to use. All right, I'm gonna stop it. I gotta go eat. They quit serving breakfast at 11. And then I gotta go to the airport, get ready for my flight, and head back home. Be it ever so humble, there's no place like home. And I will end with that. If you'd like to get my help personally, marksinspiration.com is my website, and you can find out a little more about me there, about my life, and about what I'm all about. And I had one more thing I wanted to say, but I can't remember what it was. You can check me out on Instagram at marksinspiration. I lost my thought. I cannot remember. But anyway, I guess I'm supposed to stop. Take care. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.